that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Are we all set? Let's go.
Well, we're just going to have to play it by ear today.
This is Energy Week, folks. Believe it or not, and you can see that we're in our camping out mode, where all of our technology, except a small amount, has been stripped from us.
I only have one mouse to work with today.
But we're trying to get everything straight for you. Before I start reading the news today, as those of you who have watched this show before know, I get up early every morning and look at the news for energy and global warming and prepare a list of things that go on this show, and also daily onto my blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com, and also get reported in Green Energy Times. What I do is I gather all this stuff, and this show is the cream of the crop for the week. Well, I forget whether it was last week or the week before. We reported an item which was that General Motors had said that they were very much increasing their production of electric vehicles, and the reason was partly because the automotive industry was unsustainable. And as an industry. So I was writing about that for Green Energy Times, and as I was preparing for this show, and I wanted to go back, and this drew me into actually looking at the GM press release. And I just wanted to explain to you that business about GM saying that the automotive industry is unsustainable. That was the first sentence of their press release. That's what they said in their first sentence.
They wanted to catch your attention.
The U.S. auto industry is unsustainable. And so they're doing, not just switching to EVs for a large part of their production, they're also doing a number of other things, one of which is to make 100 of their plants, I don't know how many plants they've got, but you know, they've got a lot of subsidiaries.
More than several.
They've got more than 100.
Yeah, I think so.
100 of their plants are going to be altered in order to bring them up to Energy Star standards, and they are capturing water. They're being very careful about water. They are switching plants so that they don't use landfills for their waste, so the waste is recycled. They're switching. Yes, they're capturing methane emissions from their plants, and I don't know where the emissions are coming from, but they may be coming from food waste or the toilets or wherever. Mm-hmm. But they're capturing those emissions and using them to generate power to make cars. General Motors, folks, this is General Motors doing this. This is not a bunch of hippies. It's not a bunch of communists. It's General Motors. So, having said that, I'm going to start on the news.
Before he does, I got to explain a little bit of what's going on today.
Yeah, Tom will explain it all.
Our regular situation here, where we got 3 cameras, and isn't working today.
Yeah.
And it seems to be something we can't fix on the run.
Yeah.
So we're, as George mentioned, camping out today. We're doing it differently.
Yep.
And what I normally am able to scroll through in a concealed manner is up here on the screen behind me.
Yes.
And I'm going to have to just move through it if we want to find something that I got a reference to.
So if it
and
looks
we're going to
hokey,
have to just deal with that.
Absolutely. You know? If it looks hokey, you can donate money for that memory chip that got
and we can
demolished.
talk about this picture later when it comes time to talk about
it. But it is because of a chip in a computer. At least that's what I think. Maybe it's because of a motherboard in a computer, which would probably be much worse.
It could be gremlins too.
Oh dear. Anyway.
Harder to deal with.
Yes.
You got the floor, Doug.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we're going back to last Friday, which was the 30th of May. And our first news item comes from the Huffington Post. And by the way, if you want to refer to these, you can go to my blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com, go to the date, and you'll find it. Species of plants and animals are becoming extinct at least 1,000 times faster than they did before humans arrived on the scene, and the world is on the brink of the sixth great extinction, according to a new study published by the journal Science. Wow, look at those guys.
That's a golden lion tamarin.
A golden Hawaiian tamarin?
Lion.
Oh, lion.
Doesn't it look like a lion?
A little bit.
Tiny monkey. It's about this big.
Yeah.
And there's only 1,000 of them, I believe,
Oh my gosh.
known left in the wild, and 500 in addition alive in zoos.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Isn't that a beautiful creature?
That's a very beautiful creature, but he looks mean. I don't think I'd want one as a pet.
He looks a little bit PO'd there, doesn't he? I had a teacher in high school look like that.
Really? Okay, let's keep going. Next, from the Boulder Daily Camera, Xcel Energy announced that as of 2013, it had reduced its carbon dioxide emissions by nearly 20% since 2005. 20%, this is a utility. Exceeding President Barack Obama's announced goal, this is before the EPA announcements, I don't know what the change those would have on it, of achieving a 17% reduction by 2020. I don't think it would make any difference. But anyway, we should give them one of these golden lion tamarins as an award. Next, from the Denver Business Journal, the Natural Resources Defense Council says that new federal standards that aim to cut greenhouse gas emissions from power plants could save the national consumers $37.4 billion in 2020 via reduced electricity bills by the time the rules are fully implemented. I want to point out what we're saying is we switch to renewable power, it reduces the cost of electricity.
Absolutely.
Why? Because
we don't have to pay for
fuel. You know, I mean,
I've got something up on this.
Okay,
This came from Forbes, and it's about the same thing.
Yeah.
Why cutting carbon from power plants is good for business. Well,
Yes.
Forbes is aiming at business.
Yeah.
They're talking to these guys.
Yep.
And they're saying, stop playing games. You save money, you make money.
That's right. Yeah, and that's, by the way, why GM is taking the position that it is.
And
they want to make money in the future, and they know that the business that they had was not sustainable.
And this is the kind of thing that investors understand.
Some investors, the ones who are deeply into coal, don't seem to get it. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, same day from Business Week, Chevron's Renewable Power Group. This is mind-blowing to me. Produced profits for 2013 that were nearly double what the company hoped for. Okay, nevertheless, managers told the group that funding for the effort would dry up and encouraged staffers to find jobs elsewhere. What is this all about? We're making money, let's shut it down.
Somehow I missed something there.
Honestly, I think Chevron missed something there, but what can I say? Okay, on the 31st of May, the Equation, the blog of the Union of Concerned Scientists, gave us this. This is an opinion piece. How to cut power plant carbon by 50%. New EPA climate rules can create a foundation for real global warming solutions. What I just read there, how to cut, etc., is the title, long title.
That goes along with pretty much what I've got up here now.
Okay. The new UCS analysis shows that a strong standard provides an opportunity to cut power plant emissions in half by 2030. Now, this is before the EPA standard was announced, the new EPA plan.
Uh-huh.
And the new EPA plan was not 50%, it was 30%. Mm-hmm. So I think we should write the EPA and say, get a stronger standard, it'll save us money.
Yeah.
Okay? There you go. Next, and I love, some of these.
I'll pull the last line of this one out as a takeaway. The benefits of the standards are much greater than the costs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
That's
there's
the takeaway.
No question in my mind about that. Again, how do you compete with free fuel? Or, to put it another way, with no fuel
Well, how would you put it? It's 50 years ago. We didn't have the technology to do this.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's all falling in place.
In that respect, Tom, it's not in the news, but yesterday or the day before yesterday, I had a fascinating talk with an architect in Brooklyn. Now, we're going to do an article in Green Energy Times about this architect, and it's going to be introduced in the next edition, but it'll be the following edition, which will appear in August, that we really go into it, because that publication comes out every other month. But he has a building, 6 units in Brooklyn, which is so carefully insulated and sealed and so forth. And air sealing means that you have ventilation, but you're capturing the heat. Mm-hmm. It's so carefully weatherproofed that the heat for the 6 units in this apartment building is supplied for each unit by an electric heating mat on the bathroom floor.
Okay.
Now, the apartment building has a 38 kilowatt PV array mounted on it. This is a tiny building, but it's got every place you can look. There's
38 kilowatts isn't very much.
But for 6 units, it does a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they don't have to have a huge system there, but the whole place, and they're doing things like capturing rainwater in order to use it instead of city water. And the people who were working with him were saying, why would you spend 10 cents on equipment to capture rainwater when you can buy water for a penny a gallon? Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, that statement, that question doesn't make sense, because it's kind of like saying, why would you spend 10 cents on a bottle when you can buy a gallon of water for free, or whatever, for a penny? And the answer to the question is, man, you're buying a bottle, not a gallon of water. Why would you compare the two? Once you've got this thing in, you're going to be capturing rainwater forever, and the penny a gallon really goes away as soon as you've captured 10 gallons worth,
And you still got to get rid of that bottle.
And you still got to get rid of the bottle. That's true.
And just throwing it away,
yeah,
just hides the cost. Somebody else pays for it.
That's right. Okay. Now, where did we go here? Now I have to get back in business here. Everyone, this one, I love these sources sometimes. This comes from NASDAQ.
Okay.
Okay. Everyone understood that solar power, as a promising renewable form of energy, needed eventually to compete with nuclear, oil, coal, and gas without any government subsidies. Much faster than expected. We are almost there. Now, this is interesting because NASDAQ is a stock market entity. And this stock
National Association of Securities Dealers Automated Quotations.
Yeah, there you go. And so here's the stock market saying, yeah, we kind of expected this. We didn't expect that it would happen this fast, but here it is. And bearing that in mind, we will go to the next item, which you can find posted on Green Energy Times. This is actually from a press release from Green Mountain Power. Green Mountain Power has announced it has reached an agreement with the Vermont Department of Public Services and other stakeholders to decrease electric rates by 2.46%. The rate decrease will take effect on October 1st, 2014.
That's amazing.
No, it's not amazing. They're putting in solar power everywhere.
Yeah, I know, but why don't they just keep it?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
That's not the way business works.
Well, utilities are regulated, at least in states where consumers don't have choices.
Yeah.
And in Vermont, we don't have a choice, which means the utility has to answer to the state government.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I think what they're doing is they're just doing the upfront
regulated
thing.
monopoly model.
Absolutely. They're doing the upfront thing. They're going to the state and saying, we're making more money than we thought we would. So here's some back. And I will point out that Green Mountain Power has been doing the most amazing things. They are converting 100 houses in Rutland as part of that pilot program to basically be energy free. I mean, they're insulating them, they're sealing them, they're putting PVs on the roofs of these houses so that they don't have to sell the people power anymore. What is this? But they're doing it, and the reason is because Mary Powell, the CEO of Green Mountain Power, and her staff has drawn the conclusion that the most important thing they can do now is come up with a different business model. And I think
that's very prescient.
Yeah, I think that the deal here is that they know they will always be distributing power, and they will always
their business.
That's their business, and they will always be making money on the distribution of power if they are doing it right. So what they're interested in doing is making sure that the power is generated in a way that makes sense to Vermont, which is where all of their customers are. And they're just moving ahead in a place where, come whatever may, they're going to be making money, and they're going to be doing it the best way they can.
Well, I got no problem with
I don't
that.
have a problem with that. Okay, so we're up to the 1st of June, and this comes from Clean Technica. Now that the age of fossil fuels and petrochemicals is winding down, sewage mining is obviously the next best thing.
Here we go.
Wastewater to gas angle is already going strong, and a number of companies are busily reclaiming other useful raw materials too. This is from Clean Technica.
This is it.
Here you see it, right there on the screen.
It's that blue thing.
Right there on the screen.
It's that blue thing right there.
It's
that
the blue
is what
thing.
they're talking about. This is the overall sewage treatment plant.
Yep.
And what they're selling is the SRS, which is well. Let's see if it explains it a little bit better. It tells you what it does. It results in a useful product that does not involve ripping through virgin land, and 3, solves a major bottom line problem. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Starting with the bottom line issue, we're going backwards now. A modern wastewater treatment is an enormously expensive, energy-sucking endeavor.
Yes.
That drags down municipal budgets.
It sure does.
Sewage mining offers a way out of this mess by enabling communities to recover value from their wastewater. So that's what this SRS system does. It comes into the bottom of the equation because it cuts down the amount of sludge. And they define sludge as tiny particles of suspended solids. The other word for sludge we can't say on the air. That goes through the wastewater treatment process by up to 50%. This substantially reduces the energy required to pump the wastewater through the treatment facility. You don't even think about that.
This is it just makes sense, and this is something that we're seeing not just in waste treatment, municipal waste and things like that, but all over the world in all different ways.
Absolutely.
We're
So by
seeing
removing
people,
the sludge
yeah,
before it goes through the treatment process, it frees up capacity within the plant to do it more efficiently.
yeah. This actually is the business that my son Jeff, who lives in Kenosha, Wisconsin, is in. And this is a slightly different part of the whole thing. He's in the business of building centrifuges.
Okay.
And huge
Yeah.
centrifuges. So they concentrate the sludge.
It reduces operating expenses by 30%. Capacity is increased by that same 30%. It traps the cellulosic particles in sludge, hence the name recyclose, which otherwise would not be digested during biogas production. You can still get your biogas. Skipping back to number 1, this recyclose is a useful product indeed. It comes in the form of pellets or pulp, consisting mainly of reclaimed cellulose fibers, which makes it suitable for use as a fuel.
As a fuel. Yeah.
In addition to pulp and paper or bioplastic additives. So here's what they got here. We'll go back to the plant. The stuff is coming in here. It goes through here. They take out most of the sludge. The rest of it goes through the process as it normally does. And you've driven by the plants probably, or
Yeah.
the one in Dover is
Yeah.
right by the road. You can see what's going on.
Yep.
You can see these things.
Yep.
You can see those things.
Clarifiers.
And then the waste sludge is a very small part of the whole process now. So
And what you're finally left with is sludge, which you can use for a variety of purposes,
which is marketable,
and water, which is clean.
which is clean water.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like the old stockyards. They're using everything with the squeal.
That's right. There you go. Okay, and the next one is from Clean Technica. The idea of replacing America's asphalt roads with solar panels, which we have talked about on the show.
We've talked about that. Yeah, here we go.
Apparently has plenty of appeal. The Solar Roadways Indiegogo campaign has raised $1.5 million to use towards research and development of this cutting-edge solution for our world's environmental woes. And I want to point out the picture of the moose here. Well, on the left, you see people actually handling these panels, which,
Yep.
as you see,
That's the inventor.
they're very, very thick. Mm-hmm. They're very big. Why? Because they have to be able to support huge trucks. Mm-hmm. They are going to be on the surface of roads. They've installed them. I think that's probably
That's their patio.
That's their patio. Oh,
Yep,
I was going to say
demonstration project.
Probably a parking lot. But these things have a bunch of things besides just being solar panels. They
Well, they light up.
They light up when moose walk across them, and I would guess probably when children do as well.
Yeah.
And so if you're driving along in the middle of the night and there's I had a neighbor down the hill from where I lived in New Hampshire who had a black horse, and a woman driving a car over the hill came down and the horse was on the road. It was the middle of the night. It's hard to see a black horse in the middle of the night. But when you hit one with a car going 40 miles an hour,
Not pleasant.
it's not pleasant. The
Either for you or the horse.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the horse was killed, the car was totaled, and the woman driving the car was very badly hurt. But, there it is. If that roadway had this, she would have seen those things and known immediately that there was something on the road. But the other thing, of course, is if you look at the statistics that they have come up with based on the fact that they've actually built these things and installed them, we could produce more power than we need just by covering our roads with
Oh yeah, I
these
saw the
things.
figures on that. That's incredible.
It's like a huge multiple, large multiple, not huge, maybe twice as much, 3 times, I don't remember. But, just by covering our roads.
And they can melt the snow as it falls.
That's right. They're multi-purpose. There are reasons why these things are superior to asphalt anyway. They'd probably last much, much longer than the asphalt. They wouldn't be putting asphalt all over everybody and everything. They wouldn't stink up the countryside as they're being put in and so forth.
You don't see it here. I did see it in some of the pictures on their website. There's like a crawl space underneath there. Very long for access to these panels. There's wiring down there.
Yes.
So you could put other stuff like cables down there.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Yep. We got to move on, Tom. We got a lot of news this week.
This is coming up so many different places.
I know, it just comes up
Coming
everywhere.
all over
It's got
the
a
web.
lot of appeal.
It's hot.
Okay. On the 2nd, Denmark has given the green light to investment in a 700 megawatt Cobra interconnector with the Netherlands.
There we go.
So they're building an interconnector going from Denmark to the Netherlands. I'm going the wrong way for a map for the folks. Denmark to the Netherlands. And let's see. Energy Minister Rasmus Helveg Petersen, I don't know how to pronounce that, but I probably came pretty close, issued the all clear this morning, being on the 2nd. The 300 kilometer undersea cable will carry high voltage DC power from wind farms. This to balance out the European grid.
What you're looking at there is a picture.
These pictures are just mind-boggling.
This would be the ship that would lay the cables.
Yeah,
and those are the cables.
These are the cables in spools. Now, just how wide do you think that is? On the right and on the left are 2 little booths, and you can see the steps going up to them.
Yep.
Those are stairs. I have no idea how thick that cable is.
Probably about 6-8 inches, maybe 10.
Oh, man, this is not this is not a spool of thread on a sewing machine here.
These cables are probably 300 kilovolts, 500 kilovolts, something like that. And they're going for miles.
You would know. I don't know. I don't know high voltage cables well enough, but those spools, I have no idea how wide those are, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was 100 feet across. And that's a spool, is 100 feet across. That's what I'm
I think it's a little bit smaller than that.
A little smaller?
You know, it's still pretty big.
It's big. It's more than 60
still
feet,
pretty
I'm
damn
sure.
big.
Okay, let's keep going. The next item from RYOT, and I have no idea how that could be pronounced aside from riot, but it's probably not pronounced that way. Lake Kivu, and I've heard of this place before. People die there.
Here we go. This is Rwanda.
Yeah.
There's the lake.
On the border between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, it is a relatively small body of water that poses a not so small problem. It's filled with 60 billion cubic meters of methane gas.
Yeah.
A project called Kivu Watt plans to use that problem for power. They're going to gather the methane that comes up, and they're going to burn it so that it produces power. But of course, that's going to be good for global warming too, because every time you've got methane and you can convert it to carbon dioxide,
you're saving.
Because methane is
200 times.
Methane is depending upon which scientist you're talking to. It's somewhere between 20 and 50 times as powerful as a global warming agent as carbon dioxide.
By the way, this gas is getting there as a result of tectonic activity.
Yes.
It's not being generated by sludge or anything.
Yeah, this is underground
There's
gas that's coming up. It would be coming up regardless of who was doing what. This is not human activity. This is a case where this contribution to global warming is not human.
And in the past, it has exploded from time to time.
It has killed people. It has smothered people, where people have died simply because they didn't have oxygen to breathe. So that's a step in the right direction, I guess. The next, from the Los Angeles Times, the Obama administration will seek, now this is, of course, this is in the past, they've already sought, to cut greenhouse gas emissions from existing power plants 30% from the 2005 levels by 2030, potentially one of the biggest steps any country has taken to confront climate change. People familiar with the plan said on Sunday, and I'm not going to comment on that because it's coming up again in the next one, which is the third. Now, what happened here was the Obama administration, the EPA actually, specifically released a plan for new standards. The EPA is required by law to standardize carbon emissions, and that is something that has already gone before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yes, you are required by law to do this. So there's a court battle on this that has already been fought. But the Obama administration has released standards for each individual state, except one state. And that's this next item, which comes from the Greenfield Daily Reporter. And by the way, this is not Greenfield, Vermont, Greenfield, New Hampshire,
Kansas or something
or Greenfield, Massachusetts. I think it's Indiana. I might be wrong.
It's out there somewhere.
It's out there somewhere. Vermont is the only state not covered by the Obama administration's sweeping new plan to cut carbon dioxide emissions by 30% over the next 15 years. But the state will still benefit by working with other states to meet the goals.
How did we escape that?
By not having any fossil fuel plants
Bingo.
in Vermont.
How clever of us. Hey, what the heck?
But you know, this is an interesting thing because it means that the money we spend on renewable power is not money that we're spending to displace carbon emissions that we're making. The money we spend on renewable power is spent to keep the money from the plants in the state. It is an very powerful economic argument. Now, it does reduce carbon emissions. But from a legal point of view, we don't have to do that. What we do have to do from a common sense point of view is save money. And we can save money by keeping the money for electrical power in the state. And we can do that by generating power renewably.
Generating our own.
Generating our own. Okay. That from the Greenfield Daily Reporter out in the middle of Nowhere. I shouldn't say that. I was born in Kansas. Next, from Clean Technica, U.S. solar panel installations climbed to a record 1.3 gigawatts in the first quarter of 2014, according to the SEIA quarterly report. Solar PV's installations jumped 79% from the first quarter of 2013, with 744 megawatts added. Only 2013 Q4 had more installations with 2.1 gigawatts. And it'll be interesting to see how that will go on in the future. But what we're seeing is very, very big growth in the solar industry year by year. Huge growth. It's the biggest growth industry in the United States.
Makes sense.
And it has about, I'm going to have to do a quick calculation, about 4 to 5 times as many employees as the coal industry does now.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's growing. And the numbers by which it's growing are so big that if the people in the coal industry went into solar, they'd find jobs pretty fast. Mm-hmm. Okay?
And we haven't hit the bottom yet in price.
That's right. I think that's true. I'm pretty sure that's true. Sunshot initiative by the federal government, the DOE, wants to reduce the price to $1 a watt for installed solar. And
they're close to that now.
No, they're about $3.50, $4 a watt in most places.
Install cost.
Yeah, a lot of the cost is the cost of installation, and unfortunately or not, depending upon the way you look at it, a large part of the cost is permitting and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. So, and what we have to do, one of the things we can do as reporters of the news. How do you like being a news reporter? Wow. One of the things we can do is make sure that people realize that solar is affordable, because as soon as everybody understands that, the solar industry will not have to be spending anywhere near as much money advertising as it does now, which will further drive the costs down, because a large part of the cost is customer acquisition.
Absolutely. Got something up here that's related.
Okay.
It's just saying that middle-class Americans are leading this solar revolution.
Absolutely.
It's not big business now yet.
Oh yeah.
It's people putting up rooftop solar.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, if you look at for example, Germany, the prevailing trend in Germany is that most of the renewable energy, actually most of all renewable energy, including wind in Germany, is driven by individuals, families, co-ops, small farms, small businesses. It's a very powerful movement in Germany. Okay, the next item comes from Triple Pundit, a report from International Renewable Energy Agency says that proper investment in wind, solar, and other renewable energy generating technologies can lead to an economic boom. Well, we could have told them that. Okay, let's go on to the fourth. Now, this is from Business Green, but the first thing it mentions is the name of a newspaper, The Guardian. The Guardian reported this morning, that is to say on the 4th, that the Queen's speech, which the Queen I think makes every year, is to contain a surprise measure designed to make it easier for local residents in the UK to invest in wind and solar farm projects near their properties. Now, this is exactly what we're already doing in Vermont, where you can you can say, okay, I want to have solar power, but I can't do it because I live in an apartment on the north side of a building, or whatever the problem is. I live on the north side of a mountain. I've known people who lived on the north side of a mountain and they did not get any sunshine at all. How do you get solar power out of that? Well, you join an initiative where you've got a community power plan going on, or a co-op power plan or something of that nature, where you buy in, and you can, in some cases, actually buy solar panels that are in a place. You can identify them and you say, that's my solar panel.
Mine.
And when you buy it, you not only do you pay for it, but you pay for insurance, you pay for maintenance, the whole 9 yards for the next 30 years, for example. And so, and the payoff, the payment on that is approximately equal to your electric bill, which you no longer pay because your panels are generating the power, so you don't need to pay the electric bill, which means that your cost of electricity goes down, or it stays the same, guaranteed, for the period of the payoff, which might be 8 or 10 years. And if your payoff is 10 years and the electric price of electricity goes up during that, it might double during that price, 10 years down the line, you find yourself in a position where you're paying less than everybody else. And then what happens? Well, your power generating equipment is paid off. So as long as it lasts, you're getting free power. And these places have got a certain number of the solar panels, in some cases, installed to generate money to sell to the grid, to generate money to cover the cost of maintenance, standard maintenance, taxes, whatever it is they have to cover.
So it's basically all done by bookkeeping.
It's all done by bookkeeping, but the thing is, it means your electric bill goes down or it stays the same. It never goes up.
Not going to go up.
You've locked in the price, and the only way that you could lose on this would be if the price of electricity went down a lot.
Ain't going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen. No matter what Green Mountain Power does, that 4.5% decrease is not going to cut it as far as this is concerned. And eventually you get into a position where you own a bunch of power generating equipment that you don't have to do any maintenance on, and it's generating electricity, so you don't have to leave it to your daughter in your will. You can sell it to your neighbor if you move to Texas and take advantage of the low price power they get from wind and solar down there.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, it does. Okay, on the 3rd, also on the, let's see, where am I here? Am I on the 3rd? No, I'm not on the 3rd, I'm on the 4th. Okay, that was the Guardian report that we just did. Okay, the world is not moving fast enough on investment in low carbon energy to tackle climate change, a new research from the International Energy Agency has found. Now, we're not going to talk about this one until we get to the one that happened today, okay?
Okay.
Okay. About $1.6 trillion is invested annually in the global energy supply, but that needs to rise to $2 trillion. $2 trillion every year in order to tackle climate change.
That's worldwide.
Worldwide. Okay, that's from The Guardian. Next, the European Union's greenhouse gas emissions continued to fall in 2012 as a 1.3% decrease meant emissions have now been cut to 19.2% below the 1990 levels, according to the official data from the European Environmental Agency. Now, they've got to really work hard to get that 0.8% they have to get in the next 6 years. They're almost to their 2020 goals. Okay, and this is one that we want to talk about, but I think we better delay this until the end of the news, because we could really go into this.
That's coming soon.
Vernon,
I don't know when we started, but I got 10:57 now.
well, we've got about 25 minutes then.
Okay.
We were more than 20 minutes late. Vernon, Vermont Select Board members are touting the potential benefits. You're just jumping the gun here. Let's wait until after the thing to get to this one. Potential benefits of a new biomass plant, the possibility of a natural gas component that could be built at the Vermont Yankee site after the nuclear facility shuts. Now, I have to ask you a question now. I hope you don't mind. Why does it have to happen after the facility shuts? They could start building tomorrow. Oh, I know. It's because they've got to get through all the permitting. Okay.
Yeah, Yankees got to sell them the land.
True enough. Okay, the 5th, that's today. This is from Bloomberg View. Now, this is Bloomberg, so it's not trivial.
Another left-wing source.
Yeah, right. Not exactly left wings, folks. And this is an op-ed piece. And the title is, quote, "Obama isn't killing power plants, the sun is," end quote. Opponents to President Obama's regulations for controlling carbon emissions are claiming the new rules are so onerous They will imperil the electric utility industry. Actually, it's a little too late for that. The solar power got there first. Oh well. Next, from Business Spectator. The world needs to spend $48 trillion between now and 2035. Now this is a different set of data than the previous one. To meet the rising demand for energy according to the International Energy Agency. The good news is that for an extra $5 trillion, an increase of about 10.5%, we can both meet the demand and avoid dangerous climate change. Now, what this is saying is the cost of addressing climate change will be, if we do it properly, about $5 trillion over the next 20 years. Is that right?
Worldwide.
Worldwide. $5 trillion over the next 20 years, which is $500 billion. I'm sorry, $250 billion per year. Have I got that right?
I wasn't following that.
$5 trillion over 20 years.
Yeah.
$250 billion a year, worldwide.
Yeah.
So basically what's happening here, if you think about this in terms of what's going on in the United States, the coal industry, the plant's average age is 42 years.
So
All
they're
of those
ready
plants-
to be replaced.
All those plants have to be replaced. And
Ain't gonna happen.
the cost of replacing them is going to be high because we know that we have to control emissions. Folks, don't worry about climate change. Worry about the fact that there are rivers and streams in Vermont where you go fishing, you can catch the fish, but don't eat it because it's full of mercury. And where did that mercury come from? It came from Ohio and it came from
I got
Pennsylvania.
that one
and
right here.
Wow.
I got
And
a quick one right here.
yeah.
Read it. It's
Which
short.
is that? I can't see it.
I'll read it.
Okay, you read
The
it.
president of a Trout Unlimited chapter is a
Oh,
lifelong fisherman who says this came from Michigan, so I took Michigan out of there.
Okay,
It says he has seen the impact of carbon pollution on wildlife,
yeah.
as many smaller streams have dried up or the fish died off. He stresses that the value of preserving our outdoor legacy cannot be underestimated.
I think he means overestimated. The value can't be overestimated. Oh
We
well.
can debate about that
Yeah,
one.
okay.
In any case, he means it's important.
Yes, he means it's important.
The pollution from the power plants means fish won't be safe to eat, and we won't want to go fishing for them in the polluted waters. It means our children and our grandchildren won't be able to experience the natural beauty and activities. We have an obligation as stewards to do everything we can possibly do to mitigate these losses.
Right, and a point that I would make here is if your neighbor took something that was trash and he threw it over the fence onto your lawn,
I don't think that'd be happy.
it should be his responsibility to see to it that it's cleaned up. These power plants have been putting mercury into our waters in Vermont, New Hampshire, wherever, all over the country for a very long time, over 100 years.
Well, I used to drive by this particularly pretty stream in New Hampshire,
Yeah,
at least once a week.
yeah,
There's a big sign there, do not eat the fish from these waters.
yeah,
And then down below, it would say, why? Because it's mercury.
yeah. This stuff is insidiously damaging. It literally makes holes in your brain. Mercury does.
Oh, is that what's happening?
Yeah, this is bad news.
I thought it
You know,
was
I
okay.
saw a slice that was done. It was not a biopsy. What do you do?
CAT scan?
No, it wasn't a CAT scan. They had actually sliced the brain of a
Yeah.
person who had died.
Yeah.
And the guy worked in a mine in Spain, and his brain was just full of holes.
Wow.
It was just full of holes. This stuff is very bad. It makes it hard for you to communicate.
You know, this reminds me, when I was a kid, I caught my first real fish.
Yeah.
You know, it was a perch.
Oh,
And
mine too.
I brought it home. My mother cooked it. And I felt so great about that. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd bring bullheads home and she wouldn't cook them.
Oh.
She didn't like what they looked like.
I don't
But
blame
that
her.
perch-
Bullheads are-
That perch, boy, I was king. I was king that
Yeah.
day.
My first real fish was a perch, and it was a beautiful perch, beautiful perch.
No matter what kind of perch it was a beautiful perch.
It was a yellow perch that I caught in Maine,
Yeah.
and it was big. Okay, we really have to get through this, don't we? Okay. Now, we just did the Vernon, Vermont Select Board members. We did the
We mentioned
Obama.
it, yeah.
Oh, we're up to date here. Okay, this next one is one that I think we're going to have a little fun with. It seems, that, and this from a publication called Energy Matters. It seems Australia's greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets. Let me say this again. It seems Australia's greenhouse gas emission reduction targets were more than tripled over the weekend.
You told me about this one.
Okay, how did this happen? From a 5% cut by 2020 to a reduction of more than 18%. Now, you got to bear in mind, the government of Australia is under the control of a group of people who are profoundly anti-renewable and want to produce coal like mad. Mm-hmm. Okay, how did this happen? If you're surprised, the Abbott government might be too. They didn't know this. The new target is a default automatically generated by law. Oops, they weren't addressing it. And so now that's the law. And in order to get that law changed, they're going to have to go back to the Congress in Australia and say, we want to change this law. And guess what? The last time they went to the Senate and said, we want to change things, the Senate didn't go along with it. So I think, I told Tom I was going to say this, I'm going to say it. Tony Abbott needs a new wardrobe. Tony Abbott being the head guy in Australia. What he needs is a great big bow tie, very long shoes, and a ball on his nose. It's mind-boggling that this would happen. But you've got a government in Australia which is extremely arrogant and looks like it's in the pockets of, at least that's my opinion. It's my opinion, folks. If Tony Abbott wants to sue me over saying that, I will remind you it's just my opinion. Okay, and finally, from Think Progress, an explosive new report from the US DOE, that's the Department of Energy, makes clear that liquefied natural gas is likely a climate-destroying misallocation of resources. And the reason
Better explain that one.
Yeah. If one estimates for methane leakage based on actual observations, we've seen this before. Natural gas from fracked fields is worse than coal in terms of the damage that it does to the environment.
And this is something unavoidable.
Well, according to the natural gas industry, it is avoidable. If they have the proper regulations in place, which they don't have, or they, for whatever other reason, take the proper approach to environmental care, they can prevent a lot of that leakage from happening.
If they could save it, they could sell it.
That's what the industry says.
Yeah.
So the good guys in the industry are saying that the bad guys in the industry are the ones to blame. Mm-hmm. But of course, I wonder how good the good guys in the industry are. Now, I want to point out...
They don't wear white hats?
I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah. One of the news items that isn't in here today because it came in too late to be posted was something about the decline in exploration of the oil and gas
you mentioned that when I first came in.
The natural gas industry has cut its exploration and drilling by over 50% in the last year and a half. And the oil industry is cutting exploration and drilling as well. And the reason is because they're not making money on what they're finding when they frack. Mm-hmm. The oil industry has to get $120 a barrel in order to justify drilling in fracked areas, which means if we're going to depend on fracked oil for our cars, fracked gas to do our cooking or whatever we're going to do, we're going to have to be prepared to pay much higher prices.
Well, we talked about this last week. We had some picture up of a map of California.
In other words, George, Why are you talking about this?
90s, they overestimated the gas, or this was oil they were getting by fracking, I think.
In the Marcellus field
Well, I'm talking about California.
that's the Marcellus field, I think, in
No,
California.
Marcellus, New York.
Okay, it's not Marcellus. What's the one in California? Whatever it is, it's in Southern California.
96%.
96%. So they cut the estimate, and this is in one fell swoop, they came in and said, it's not that figure, it's only 4% of that figure. And
This was what I said, if you got stock in Occidental Petroleum, sell it.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't hold stock in anybody, any organization that was dependent on fossil fuels right now, because they don't look good. The future of those things doesn't look good. Let's see how much time we've got. I show that we've got about 10 minutes.
You want to show some pictures?
Well, one thing that we have to talk about is what's going on in Vernon.
Okay.
Let's do that.
I'll bring it up. I didn't take too much in the way of information down.
Okay,
But
but whatever you want to do, Tom, is fine with me. I've had my, you get, what, 20% of the show and I get 80%? Okay, what do we got here?
Well, it's just a quick paragraph explaining, this is cut right out of a Reformer.
Okay.
And they're not telling us very much.
Yeah.
Those
I
involved
see
with
that
the
they have a
proposal.
very interesting new spelling of details in there, in the fourth line, just to the right of the middle. Officials expect, what can I say?
That came right out of the Reformer.
You can blame the Reformer, folks.
I didn't type that.
I have a certain level of respect for the Reformer, so, you know, I feel like I can make fun of them because it's not being mean.
Well, those involved with the proposal, including a Winhole man who is president of American Generation Partners, acknowledge that the proposal is in its infancy
Yes.
and would have to overcome significant financing and regulatory hurdles, not to mention acquisition of the property from Yankee owner Entergy Corp.
Well, I have a feeling that they'd be able to get the property.
Well, it doesn't have to be on Entergy's property anyhow, but
But,
some of that property is going to be unusable for a long period of time.
well, the other thing is that that piece of property has enough room for an entire,
Oh, it's got plenty of room
it actually initially was licensed to build two
to build two
reactors.
plants.
So
And then
they-
there's farmland all around.
there's farmland all around. And I want to talk about this because we had a biomass plant just north of Springfield that was proposed, that was shot down by the local
Big
people,
time.
including a big poster that I saw saying, biomass, not in Vermont. I got news for you, if you don't think biomass is something for Vermont, we get more than 10% of our heat from biomass.
But of course we do.
Yeah, because people
Everybody
burn cordwood,
eats-
people
eats
burn pellets.
with wood.
We also get a lot of electricity from biomass because people use it for generating electricity by capturing methane from biodigesters.
Correct.
Biomass
And from
is-
landfills.
And from landfills. Biomass is not burning wood.
Exactly.
Burning wood is biomass, but
Exactly.
there are many other things in biomass. Now, in this particular case, we could be burning straw. We could be, actually, you know, it would be possible, and Vernon is a place that has a lot of dairy. We could actually have a cooperative biodigester there.
Absolutely.
And the biodigester doesn't
I'm
have
sure
to
they're
be,
digesting right now.
yeah, but it doesn't have to be necessarily farm waste.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, in fact, it could be human waste, but it could also be food waste. And interestingly, if you are careful about making sure that you don't get one mixed with the other, which is really easy to do because one comes from a waste processing plant and the other comes from a collection of compostable materials, like we have a compost program in Brattleboro. The food waste is going to produce compost that can be used on the farms where carrots are planted. You don't want to do that with human waste. But the point that I'm making is, regardless of how you do it, if you've got it built properly, biomass is extremely clean.
Absolutely. That's the whole point of this.
Yeah,
Biomass is, the concept of biomass is a lot more than simply burning wood to boil water.
right,
There are so many other ways to do it,
yeah.
and some of them can be extremely clean.
And some of them can be
Extremely
extremely
efficient.
dirty. You can do it very dirty,
Absolutely.
in a way that's very dirty and inefficient, and that's a reason to oppose a plant if the plant is trying to burn things in a way that's inefficient and dirty. But the clean way to do it, and there's more than one clean way to do it, but just thinking one off the top of my head, if you have a wood burning facility which is doing wood gasification.
So it's not burning, it's calcining, or what do you call it? What's the word?
Gasifying. It's
There's a
destructive
word.
distillation.
It is exactly that. There's a word for burning something without oxygen. The word escapes me.
It escapes me too, but basically, to describe one clean way of doing this, when you heat up wood very hot,
Yeah.
it turns to charcoal.
Yep.
And it gives off a bunch of things. Now, the bunch of things that it gives off as gases include creosote, which is given off as a gas, but will settle as a solid or as a liquid. Now, if you capture the creosote, you can burn it very cleanly by giving it an appropriate amount of oxygen. And you can use that for powering the gasification process, producing the heat to gasify the wood.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, the gas that remains, which is going to be it's going to be methane, but it's also going to be
methane, yep.
carbon monoxide at one
Yep.
point, because you're going to introduce an insufficient supply of oxygen to burn the carbon, the charcoal that's there. You introduce an insufficient supply of carbon, so you get methane and carbon monoxide, both of which can be burned. They go into a reciprocating engine,
Or maybe a fuel cell.
they could, actually I hadn't thought of that, they could go into a fuel cell. But in order to get into something, they have to have very nearly 100% of the particulates scrubbed out.
Yeah, they gotta be clean.
Now, which means that by the time they're through that engine, they have completely burned.
Yep.
If the engine is running properly, it's going to be as clean as, in every respect, natural gas, but it will be cleaner because it won't have radon, it won't have sulfur, it won't have a bunch of things that can happen in natural gas. So you have an extremely clean process here. This is just one of several ways. Tom mentioned fuel cells. Why not? We could do that as well.
Well, a point that I've thought of, and before I even say that, I will mention that the comments that appeared online in Reformer on this, almost entirely negative.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And basically they're saying, you're gonna be burning carbon. There's gonna be CO2.
Well, yes.
Well, but
Okay.
where did CO2 come from?
It came from the atmosphere. When a tree grows, it doesn't take carbon from the soil. It takes it out of the atmosphere. That's why planting a tree reduces the carbon load in the atmosphere.
And what is the charcoal? It's sequestered carbon.
Yeah. Now this brings up another thing that you can do. You can capture in a plant of this type, you can capture the creosote and burn it. You can capture some of the carbon and burn it, but you can leave the rest of the carbon unburned
And sell it.
and sell it as
Biochar.
biochar. Biochar. This stuff is amazing. Biochar is charcoal that has enough structure from the original wood in it that it's full of pores that are large. Now, charcoal, regardless of size, is going to be, or type, is going to be full of pores. But these pores are big, which means that cells of protists can get in there. I'm talking about amoebae, things, parameciums, things like that. But also bacteria. And why would we want bacteria in our soil? Well, bacteria in the soil, you've got different kinds. They will take urine, for example, and convert it to ammonia. And then they'll take the ammonia, different kind of bacteria, but the next kind of bacteria converts the ammonia to nitrites. The next kind converts that to nitrates. This is what happens in the root nodules of legumes, which will actually take the nitrogen out of the air. But if you've got biochar in the ground, you don't need the legumes, unless you want to grow peas or peanuts or whatever. When you do that, you don't need fertilizer.
Amazing.
Isn't that amazing? We should take a look at the time here. Everything is, actually, we're at a point here where we should be closing down our show. It's 20 past.
Okay, we'll talk about this a little bit more.
We will go on. For those of you who are on the broadcast, watching BCTV, we'll say goodbye.